Check this out. Sunday, August 8th, I made $860 in one day driving with Lyft, and that doesn't even include the cash tips that I received, would actually put me over $900 for the day. Now you must be wondering why the title of my video says 500 and not the 900 that I just told you about. And that's because I genuinely hate clickbait. While I'm able to pull off the $900 figure about once a week, it's more normal for me to do $500 a day, and I wanted to make this video to focus on a goal that can be consistently attained rather than focusing on something that just sounds better. So this video will be about how I can routinely make $500 a day driving with Lyft from start to finish. I will also be sharing all of my secrets and best practices for maximizing your earnings from a day-to-day basis. If sharing my Lyft earning experience with you makes you want to go and try it out on your own, I put a link down below that will get you $1,800 guaranteed on your first 120 rides, though that number might change based off of when you're watching it and where you're driving. Regardless, that's about $1,000 more than I would make for the same amount of work. Even if you don't plan on doing rideshare, it would still help me to spread my message of ways to obtain financial freedom if you shared that message with your friends and your loved ones. Even just smashing the like button will help to get this video in front of people who are in need of ways to increase their income. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. So help me out, smash that like button. Since this is going to be a long form video, I've made sure to break everything down in chapters just in case you want to jump to a chapter that's more relevant to what you want to know. You might know some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about. So you can click on the links in the description, or if you use the video progress bar below, you'll be able to jump back and forth and just have this video more shortened to your liking. So first up, we'll be doing a general breakdown of what my income looks like for this particular almost $900 day. With Lyft, there's a few different categories of ways you can make money. I made $393.73 from rideshare earnings, which comprises of passengers that are charged for being taken from point A to point B and sometimes even to point C. $34.82 in recorded tips, which isn't a lot of money, but for those of you watching, it's a really good thing because it shows you that having a bad day in tips won't hinder you from making a lot of money. So I was really happy that I didn't get crazy tips that day. I made $17.39 from bonuses, and those are given out when a particular area is busy, and when you total all of those in, it's $445.94. I also want to note that a passenger gave me a $20 cash tip, and I had to accept a payment from a different passenger on Venmo due to them getting into the wrong car and mixing up the ride, which was for $15, and that put my total at $480 so far. That's already pretty close to $500, and from my experience, this is a bad day. Usually I have a lot more ride streaks available to me, but I was only able to pull in $24 compared to the $159 that I made last time I made $500. The ride streak bonus I speak of is when Lyft offers a bonus, usually between $12 to $18 extra for every 3 consecutive rides taken within a specific time frame. Regardless, if you add up all that together, the final breakdown is at $504.94. It's really important for me to break it down like this in order to highlight that as far as things that I can control goes, which is always my focus, I can make around $500 or more if I commit to the amount of hours required to get there. But before we can move on any further, I do have to explain that I was able to go from $500 to $900, even though it's not something I can do every day. So while I haven't gotten confirmation on this, I have a strong belief that Lyft offers bonuses to the top drivers in the area to the tune of $391. This bonus is achieved by hitting a certain number of rides over the course of a week to the tune, for me, 120 rides. While recording this, I thought it was a good time to talk to them and try to get an official statement, and they were actually responding. So I asked them if Lyft offers bonuses to drivers who outperform other drivers, to which John responded saying that bonuses are personalized to every driver and are based on individual driving history. Then I noted to John that for the last few weeks, I've been getting a bonus offer, and the more I drive, it seems to be the more I get this bonus offer. And I wanted to know if there was any correlation. That's when John let me know that bonuses depend on your driver activity. So that means if you drive more, then you will probably receive a bonus offer. But since this is something that can only be done once a week, we're going to focus on how I made $500 regularly instead of the $900, since going from $500 to $900 on a bonus that can't happen consistently isn't something I would build my business model on. The next important topic to discuss is the breakdown of expenses and taxes, since that's the question I most frequently get when I share how much money I'm making while driving with Lyft. The biggest expense that you'll find when driving with Lyft, that's just straight up gonna be gas. On this particular $900 day, I spent $68.87, which usually comes up to a tank and a half of gas. On this particular day, I had an anomaly that caused me to have to get an additional half tank of gas, meaning that I usually make about $500 on a full tank of gas. The anomaly was that I had taken a short ride from a couple who told me that they had a 3-hour ride later in the day that was pre-scheduled through Lyft. I was able to convince them that it would be cheaper if they did it with Lyft, which was true, and that I would pick up their scheduled ride if they decided to switch platforms, and they did. A lot of people don't like long rides, so I guaranteed them that I would take it. I knew that based off of when I started my day and how long the ride would take, that Lyft would kick me off at the end of it, which means I would have to drive back 3 hours, which that ate into my gas, so I end up spending more money on gas than I usually do. But I'm gonna dive into why that was a good thing a little later. Back to expenses, we know that my gas cost $68.87. Since my car is rated for an oil change every 10,000 miles and an oil change costs me $90, we can calculate how much money I spend on an oil change per mile, and at a per mile rate of 0.009 cents, right? So on this particular day, I drove 819 miles, so if we multiply that by 0.009 cents per mile, we get $7.37, which brings our total to $76.24. I also pay $236 per month for my car and $100 for insurance. Adding those two together and dividing that by the amount of days in August equals out to be $11 a day of expenses for those two. And that brings the new total to $86.24, right? Keep up. All that's left to consider is taxes. I try to legally pay as little taxes as possible, and when you drive with Lyft, it's really easy to pay not as much taxes as you would if you were a payroll employee. For the tax year of 2021, the IRS allows business owners to claim 56 cents as a tax write-off per mile driven. This is called the standard mileage rate and is based on an annual study of the fixed and variable costs that can come with operating a vehicle. A tax write-off is best explained using real numbers, so pay attention and rewind the video as needed. I will be using my numbers rounded up to the nearest 10 to make it as simple, and we're going to assume a 25% tax rate. So normally, the way taxes work for a business is that you subtract your business expenses from all the money that you've made, and what's left is your profit. For me, that would be $500 minus the $90 that we just added up, which totals in at $410. At a 25% tax rate, I would normally have to pay $102 in taxes. Now, thanks to the standard mileage deduction, if I multiply the 819 miles I drove by the deduction allowance of 56 cents, that allows me to subtract $460 instead of the $90 that would leave me with only having to pay 25% on $40, and that brings the new total to $86.24, right? Keep up. All you need to understand is that instead of paying $102 in taxes, I only have to pay $10 in taxes on a usual day where I'm making $500. It would be about $100 in taxes if we were to consider the $900. So, combining the expenses and taxes, it would be $90 if we consider the $500 that I usually make, or $190 if we consider the $900 that I actually make. So, simplify, right? Ask yourself this: would you spend $100, taxes included, to make $500? Would you spend $190 to make $900? If someone walked up to you and said, "Hey, I will 5 times your money," why would you say no? To be completely transparent, these numbers don't include the cost of something potentially going wrong with the car. But as we just learned, that cost is kind of built into the tax savings, which is how the government calculates the standard deduction. So even though we don't have numbers for this, since my car has been perfect so far, it hasn't broken down or anything, we won't have a clear picture until I complete the tax year or something happens. As it currently stands, I'm operating my business far more efficiently than other businesses that rely on their vehicles, since my average expense per mile is significantly cheaper than what the government expects me to have. As a business owner, the goal is to always maximize your profits while lowering expenses. And a lot of business owners lack that basic principle. I'm not one of them. Now that we have those numbers out the way, I want to focus on how I'm able to hit these goals so consistently, but I can't do that without clearing up a few misconceptions that a lot of Lyft drivers seem to have. The misconception is that you can only drive 12 hours per day. The misconception comes from a federal law that only allows rideshare drivers to drive 12 hours a day before having to take a break. The confusion for most drivers is that they think that this means they can only do 12 hours in one day, and then they have to wait for the next day to start driving again. That's just not true. In reality, you're just required to take a 6-hour break and then you're allowed to jump back on the road. This means you can work a total of 18 hours a day with Lyft. It's really hard, but it can be done. Another minor caveat with Lyft that I've noticed anyways, is that if you're able to continually get rides into your queue without interruption, Lyft will keep you on the road past that 12th hour. I've been able to hit 16 hours straight without taking that 6-hour break by doing this, and I'm not sure if Lyft is using some kind of legal loophole to allow for this, but I like it. It's good for me. And if you're crazy like I am and you think you can hit this, it'll be good for you too. Keeping those rules in mind, I start my day off at 5 a.m., which is when the new day starts for Lyft, as far as the payments go. My usual plan is to work 12 hours from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., take a 6-hour break until 11 p.m., and then drive until 11 a.m. the following day, and then you cycle that as necessary. On a bad day, I average about $25 an hour. On a good day, I average about $35 an hour. And it's far more common for me to average $30 an hour. Obviously, the better the day is going, the less I'll have to work to hit that $500. But I never seem to have an issue hitting it as long as I'm aiming for it, if that makes sense. Some days I'll be satisfied with $350 and I won't hunt down that $500. And should I decide to hit that $500, there really isn't anything stopping me from achieving it other than deciding that I want to do it and that I want to put the work in to achieve it. But I'll be honest, it wasn't always like this. I used to average $10 to $15, and it took a lot of testing and some trial and error to maximize how much I was making per hour. And I'm gonna share these tips and tricks with you just to save you some time. In fact, these mistakes that I see a lot of drivers in my area make, but keep in mind, every area might be different, and what might work for my area might not work for your area. So it's important to test the theories over and over until you think you got it right. So first up, I accept every single ride that comes my way. The only exclusion is if I suddenly need to be somewhere for personal reasons. A lot of drivers will tell you not to take a 15-minute ride to a passenger that's only going 5 minutes down the road, since Lyft doesn't pay you to drive to the destination. The reason I disagree with this is because a lot of rides are created based off of an algorithm. You never know if that 15-minute drive is going to put you in an area that needs a lot of ride requests. So if you're in an area that isn't getting a lot of requests and you turn it down, you might have missed your opportunity of being placed in another area that needs a lot more drivers. On top of this, as I shared with you earlier in this video, the more rides you take is the more likely Lyft is going to offer you a bonus, since bonuses are based off of individual performances. So next up, I don't want you sitting at the airport. Don't do it. So all the airports have a spot that rideshare drivers can wait in that will give them rides from people who need rides from the airport. I tested this myself and only took rides from the airport for an entire day just to see if it was the best way to make money. I would sit at the airport, right? I'd wait to be the next driver pinged for a ride. I would drop off the passenger at their destination. I would turn the app off and I would drive back to the airport and restart that cycle. The problem that I had with this is that I was wasting like my 12-hour drive time. The time you are spending at the airport without a passenger in your car, it eats away at your ability to eventually drive 18 hours a day if you so choose to do that. Beyond this, if a passenger isn't in your car, generally speaking, you're not maximizing how much money you're going to make, right? Look at this particular screen recording that I took while driving. The red areas mean that it's super busy in the area, and look how many drivers are sitting in the airport only queue. They are wasting time and they are losing money. It's 100% just not worth it. Also, just because you're not in the airport queue doesn't mean you won't get airport rides. I pick up passengers all the time from the airport without ever waiting in queue. Also, with the screen share, I turned that on before I started moving. I just had it recording because I knew I'd be making this video. The last piece of advice I can give you is always know where the hotspots are likely going to be. Since hotspots change based off of the day and the time of day, you'll only be able to know where they are the more you drive. Even now, I'm still learning more and more about my city, and it's just a process. You just have to go through it. This can range from knowing when school's in session to knowing when bars are closing, or knowing the day tourists like to go back to the airport, which in my city, which is kind of a tourist city, seems to be on Sunday mornings. If you think Lyft might be for you, I have one last tip before you decide to jump in bumper first. Before I committed to doing Lyft full time, I changed how I looked at dollars per hour and started thinking about dollars per day. I have a lot of debt and I wanted to pay it off as quickly as possible. I previously had a job that paid more money per hour, but was a salaried position. When I realized I could make less money per hour, but more money per day, I decided that it was time for a switch. I decided that Lyft was a better fit for getting my goals faster. Now I'm on track to making over $120,000 in 1 year compared to the $50,000 I was making at a job that was salary that had a better hourly pay, but paid worse per day. My advice to you would be to test your market before you make a full-time commitment. Figure out how much money you can make per hour, then multiply that number by how many hours you'd be comfortable working. You don't have to work the 18 hours that I suggest in this video. You can figure out what your goal is and do a good job of achieving it without overworking yourself. I don't like to be doing this forever, but it's a means to an end that will allow me to transition from computer science and get out of that quicker. Even if I make less money per hour, it's going to be a better quality of life that Lyft will help me achieve by being out of debt. So it's a vehicle that's going to get me from where I am in life to the next phase of my life, pun intended. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, I'll respond to all of them below. Just drop a comment. I made this YouTube channel to help as many people as possible achieve some level of financial freedom. And if driving people around all day isn't your thing, then you can check out the video I have where you can flip couches and make just as much money. And it should be somewhere on the screen. Maybe here, maybe there, well, or you know, one for each. But either way, click on one of these videos and thanks for watching. I really do hope this helps, and I really do hope you share this with someone. Peace.